My name is Elizabeth Ingram Schindler, and I am your clergy delegate to the postponed 2020 General Conference, which will finally begin next week in Charlotte, North Carolina. Together with my laity counterpart, Skylar Marston-Beal, and a great team of reserves, I'll be in Charlotte with 860 other delegates, half clergy and half laity, from around the world, to celebrate what the church is doing well and to consider almost 1,100 petitions submitted by United Methodists from around the globe to discern what's next for the United Methodist Church. Now, obviously, there are many proposals for what the church should do and be in the next 4 years and beyond. But our delegation, along with all of the other delegations in the Western United States, and many other delegates from across the country and around the world, are focused on 3 priorities. You may have heard these presented as the 3 R's, as all of them start with the letter R. These are removal of restrictive language, regionalization, and revised social principles. I just wanted to take a few minutes now to tell you about these priorities and why we're focused on these things going into General Conference next week. First is removal of restrictive language. You likely know that in 1972, the General Conference added language to the Book of Discipline that says the practice of homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching, even though we acknowledge that all people are of sacred worth. And we have been arguing about that incompatibility language ever since we put it in the Book of Discipline. At this year's General Conference, our hope is that we can remove that language and similar language everywhere it exists. We're not looking to add any affirming language right now. We just want to make the Book of Discipline neutral when it comes to sexuality and gender identity. If we can remove the restrictive language, it will leave room for churches in parts of the world where sexuality conversations are in a very different place culturally than the place we find ourselves in the United States. It would allow boards of ordained ministry to use their own discernment to decide if LGBTQIA candidates are qualified for ordination. And it would allow United Methodist clergy to preside at same-gender and non-binary weddings, though it wouldn't require that they do so. We see this neutrality as an essential next step in preserving the unity of the worldwide church and in paving the way for future full inclusion. Second, we're focused on worldwide regionalization. You may not realize that the UMC, as it is constructed today, is very U.S.-centric, even though 45% of United Methodists live outside the United States. We believe that adjusting this focus is an important part of living into who God calls us to be as a worldwide church. Regionalization would allow regional conferences around the world to maximize the effectiveness of their mission and ministry by adapting portions of the Book of Discipline to their own contexts, while we would continue to share what makes us who we are, things like our Constitution, our doctrinal standards, and our social principles. Regionalization would help us to stay deeply connected to each other, but it would decenter the United States so that the General Conference would stop wasting time on things that are only applicable in the U.S., and so that every region would have equal duties and powers, essentially refocusing the church not on the United States, but on God's call. And last, we hope to adopt revised social principles, those succinct statements that guide us in considering ethical and moral issues as United Methodists. Way back in 2012, the General Conference asked the General Board of Church and Society to review and revise the social principles, with the goal of making them more succinct, more theologically grounded, and more globally relevant. A wonderful team spent 8 years working on this project, talking to United Methodists from around the world. And they have brought us a proposed update, which includes language and topics that are important to United Methodists globally, so that Methodists anywhere and everywhere can have a strong foundation for social witness. Now, obviously, there will be many, many other proposals at General Conference, and we'll do our best to get to them all. But we hope you will join us in praying that we can accomplish these 3 priorities and continue living into God's call as United Methodists for generations to come. We'll share more about the conference while we're there through the Greater Northwest communicators, and you can follow along on social media or through the conference website. Just go to pnwumc.org and click on Events and then General Conference 2024 resource page. There you can find a list of all the Pacific Northwest delegates and reserves, as well as links to the legislation under consideration and a link to the General Conference live stream if you want to follow along while we're in Charlotte. We appreciate your prayers, and we look forward to coming home and telling you all about what God is doing in our midst.